Special thank you to Moti Zeitlin and to Zvi Goldwing. Special thank you to Nachman Fried, the sponsor behind all this, and my Rebbe Chaim Kramer, without whom I could not be here, and BRI specifically. We are in Torah Zayin in Tiniana. We are up to paragraph Ches, which we're going to dive into. So far we've learned that HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up the world that is only a tzaddik of the stature of Moshe Rabbeinu can be a true leader. And the reason why is because he knows how to have Rahmanas on the highest to the lowest. That Rahmanas extends specially to those who are on the lower side of the ladder, so to speak, who have got Aveinas, and therefore the Rahmanas is required on two levels. Number one, to give them the das to avoid Aveinas in the first place, because the only way a person can go against Hashem is because in that moment he has insanity. That's the Gemara that Rav Nachman quoted. A person can't do an Aveira unless in the moment that he's doing it, he forgets that Hashem is in the world, and then the Ruach Shtus takes over. That's the Yetzer Hara. So that's number one level. The number two level that's to avoid it in the first place. The number two level is to have the das that even when I do fall and I make a foolish mistake and do terrible Aveiras even consistently, there's another level of das to know that Hashem still is calling me to come back to Him. And that's going to fit very much into what we're going to look into in paragraph Ches. Then we learned that it's not just the tzaddik that you rely on to give you that das, as quoted from Moshe Rabbeinu, Ata hareta ladas. You've been shown this level of knowledge to know that Hashem hu Elokim, and Einod Milvadai, there's no other power except for Hashem. But this can be attained even through a conversation with a friend where you're talking about Emunah, and you're talking about Avodas Hashem, you're talking about the Koach of Tefillah, and the Kudas Tovos, whatever you're talking about, that you help each other. And in this sense, you are actually leaving behind. When you leave this world, the most important reason we're here is preparation for the eternal world. And that preparation is not just who we become, but what we leave behind after we've gone. And that's in the form of a student or a child. And if a person didn't have any students in his lifetime or any children, the fact that he actually has conversations with other people and gives chizuk to others, that is counted as a student, and it's counted as actually causing the person to have das for which he was brought into this world in the first place. So in that sense, you've actually given birth to that person. We've looked at the Gemaras that were quoted in Bava Basra that explains that when you learn with another person, it's as though you actually either made them or actually gave birth to them. Both of those are true. One's a Talmud, one is a Ben. So it fits into the two definitions that Rav Nachman is talking about here. Then we learned that the purpose of the Chacham, this Rebbe Hadar, is to reach Makifim that he's able to bring into the mind of the students that he's talking with. We've talked about Makifim. There's lots of different ways to explain this, but basically a Makif is an insight that is so powerful that it actually drowns out almost everything that you knew before, that changes your perspective on life. One thought that comes to mind is actually, I think it's brought in Chovos Halevavos. I didn't see it for many years, so I can't rely on my memory on that one, but I think it's in Chovos Halevavos, where a person sees through a window from a slight distance, and he sees a person's hand. He moves a little bit closer, and he sees a knife being applied to the hand. He looks a bit closer, and he sees there's a person holding the knife, and he's cutting off this person's hand, and it's pretty horrific. And as he gets a bit closer, he sees the person whose hand is being cut off is strapped to a table, and as he gets closer, he realizes, it's an operating room, and it's not an act of cruelty. And then you actually see the person get up and pay a handsome sum of money to the doctor, and he embraces him with whatever hands he has left. Forgive me, that reminds me of a guy who, after his legs were he gets up from in the recovery room, and he says to the doctor, My legs, I can't feel my legs. Well, of course not, I amputated your arms. So the closer we get and the bigger the picture, oh, I'm in a hospital, oh, I'm looking through the window of an operating room, oh, it's a surgeon who's being paid for his service to save this man's life because his arm is gangrene or whatever the reason. So the context gets broader and broader. As the context gets broader, my entire mind changes based on this new context. So we've given other examples. We're not going to delve into that even, anymore now. But that's the concept of a makif. A makif gives us a whole new perspective that changes everything that we thought was real till now. So the power of this tzaddik is able to bring this down to the level of whoever he's speaking to. So we're in paragraph Ches, right at the top of the page in my edition. Gam ze ha'acham adar. This wise man of the generation, sarch leida ezo makifim. I don't know if it's the same page numbering. I've got page 26 at the very top. Yeah, third line down. It says paragraph Ches. Yeah, you've got it?
It's the same.
So Gam ze ha'acham adar. So this ha'acham adar, this wise man of the generation, Gam, in addition to having to have access to the makifim that we've been speaking about, this ha'acham adar, which we mentioned, is someone who's actually able to access makifim from the highest places, which refers to Olam ha'emes, Olam haba, where there's no time and space. And that means bringing something that is beyond our minds into our minds in Olam hazeh. So this ha'acham adar, not only can he bring down these, but he also sarich leida ezo makifim. He has to know which ones he's going to communicate to his students. Which ones should he bring down? Which ones he should not bring down? For this sake, for this reason, the ha'acham adar has not got permission to reveal them in front of the students, because there's certain makifim which are beyond the students. But we're going to see also in a few moments why it doesn't pay for him to bring it down for his own sake. If he does bring down makifim, which the students are not ready, then he's going to actually, when he unloads the makifim that he's sharing with others, he's going to get new makifim, which if he's not ready for, it can be harmful to him. Sometimes he's not ready to receive these makifim. For example, if a Rebbe is giving a shiur and is giving an explanation in the Gemara, which is based on the Rashi and Tosfos as well, and while he's giving the shiur, the Rebbe suddenly has a kasha he didn't have before. This was a makif that was beyond him, but now it's entered his mind. Before he didn't know about this kasha, but the kasha now appears in his mind. It literally parachutes into your mind. The moment this new hekef, or in this case a question, jumps into his mind, and he tells it to the student that he's learning with, in the middle of this, as he's articulating the question, the Rebbe then gets an answer to the question that he just had. Now, because he's, so to speak, downloading the kasha, and now he gets a new makif, which is the teretz to the kasha, what's going to happen next is going to get a new hekef. Shehu teretz ala kushya, but as I omer gamma teretz b'fnei Talmud. So now he just finished saying over the kasha, now he tells over the teretz. However, kishemegala gamma teretz b'fnei Talmud, once he actually reveals the answer to the question to the student, as I nichnas boy oid makif acher. Now he'll get a new insight. A new makif will enter the mind of the teacher. As al yedei zeh haseichel sheba alavata. Now, what's going to happen, he's going to get another level of seichel that comes upon him now. Hadra kusha leduchta. So Rav Nachman is explaining that what's going to happen is that the original question will come back again, but adrabah, to the contrary, it won't be exactly the same. Now the question is going to come back stronger than it did before. I don't know if no one should ever get into conversations with philosophy, but sometimes you notice when you get into questions with someone who's got kashas on a Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's usually very evident very soon in the conversation if the person is really sincere in his quest to understand answers to his questions. But it becomes pretty evident early on if every single answer you try to give, they come back with their counter argument, then you realize this is not bikush ha'emes. It's not coming from a place where they actually want the answers. They want to stay with their questions, and so they got to find a question with every answer. So sometimes what happens is that they think that their question got stronger from the teretz they got, and therefore they become more confused than they were before. A very simple example of, let's say you've got a student and he's 2 years old, and his precocious is pretty advanced for his age, but you start introducing him to Surah Oisius, and he's playful, he hasn't stopped playing, and you push it on him, his seichel's not ready for it. He needs to do much more playing where his brain actually pays attention to shapes and sounds more than before, so that when he's introduced to a specific symbol, which is what the word ois means. Ois means a symbol. It's a symbol, it's a sign to the mind of the child which movements in the mouth, and there's a combination of movements, the lips, the tongue, the teeth, there's different parts of your mouth which move in order to articulate any particular letter, like lamed. So to be able to say the letter lamed, you have to be able to touch the roof of your mouth with the tip of your tongue, and then you have to happens to be sometimes confusing for children because nun is coming from the exact same movement inside your mouth. La, na, na, la, na, na, la, na, la. Don't try it now, but on your way home you can try it, and you'll see that it's very difficult to distinguish exactly. So when a child is introduced to Isis, some children are ready and some are not. And if they're really not ready, I'm pushing a hekef, a makif, on a child that they're not yet ready for. And in doing so, I can actually do a kilkul because I give the wrong message altogether to the child who thinks there's something wrong with me if all the other kids seem to be getting it and I'm not. Or they're way ahead, they're already up to Dalet and I'm stuck on Aleph. I don't know what you want from me. So the mind has to be ready for the new hekef. That's right. That's a very simple example. But even, let's say, in the world of Chumash, if I don't know Shroshim, I don't know prefix suffixes, and I just know rote taich, I'm not really learning. And worse than that, I'm training my mind to not pay attention to the structure of the words because I'm busy memorizing. And it happens the same way with Mishnayos. If I'm not introduced to Tariq mitzvahs, for which Mishnayos is actually a peirush to, what ends up happening is that I don't understand what the Mishnah wants from me because the Mishnah is a hekef. And in that hekef, in that makif of the Mishnah, there's an assumption that you know the background information that's required in order to understand the Kitzur Lashon, the very abbreviated cryptic language of the Mishnah. So it's a huge problem not to give the children the makifim that precede the Mishnah, and much worse when it comes to Gemara, because the Gemara is a peirush to the Mishnah, which is a peirush to Tariq mitzvahs. So if I don't have Tariq mitzvahs, I don't know enough Mishnayos, so I'm jumping into Bava Metzia, not the beginning, that would be Chazal. I'm jumping in the second parak, Elim Metzias, not the first Mishnah, that would be Chazal. So I'm going to jump into the second Mishnah of the second parak, and Bava Metzia in the middle of Shas, and I've got no hakdamas, no hekef, no makifim so it becomes a game. Please be mock me for saying it that way. It becomes, if I'm not giving the children the right hekefim, but everything is scaffolded, and when it's scaffolded correctly, then the child will be ready for the next level. Like the Hafez Chaim brings that if a person learnt Nigla, what's he going to do after that? Now you enter Nista. So even if a person didn't finish all of Nigla, it doesn't mean he can't enter Nista, but like Rav Nachman points out, I don't remember where he says it, Nista, the world of Kabbalah, is a Chochmah. And therefore, like any other Chochmah, even if a person, Has v'Shalom, wasn't so tahor, and it's not such a question, there's going to be limits to how much he can really be toifes, but it's still a Chochmah. It's still a Chochmah. Levels of Kedusha and Tahara, that depends on the person actually preparing themselves, going to the mikveh, but he doesn't have to go to the mikveh to understand this Chochmah. But if he does, he's going to be a better receptacle, a kli, for understanding the ruchnius in the tachlis of learning that chelik of the Torah. So he's giving an example here where the kasha and the teretz comes, and now if I articulate the teretz, I'm going to get a new question that might be stronger than the previous one. Nimsa, so it comes out. When he reveals the answer to the question to his student, now the teacher gets a new makif, a whole new understanding. And now the question might come back with a stronger impact, because now the question is stronger than it was originally. This is how it works with different reachings of new insights. There are certain things that one should not reveal. It's just that the student's not ready for it. Because if he does, the teacher himself will get a new hekef. It'll become out stronger than it was before. If he keeps on revealing what he's not ready for, he's going to get to a point where he's going to get makifim, which are coming from a place which is beyond time. I'll give you an example. Rav Nachman does bring this, I think it's in Chaf Dalet in Chaim Moran, where he mentions that when you jump into the world of how is it possible that I've got Bechira and yet Hashem knows the future? So there's no end to delving into that sugya. In fact, Rambam in two different places in Hilchos Yesodei Torah mentions that this is something that's extremely hard for the human mind to contain, because I understand Bechira, I understand past, present, and future, but if I've got free will, Bechira, how is it possible that Hashem would know that what I'm going to do? And if he does know, how do I still have free will? And it just goes spiraling. I do believe that there are tirutzim for at least understanding why it's difficult to understand, but it's still a very I guess you could say the word dangerous. It's a dangerous place to go, because there's no end to how much a person can get confused by it and then have kashas. Really, the question doesn't exist. I'm just going to give you a very a brief answer on that, because when we ask questions about Hashem, it's got to be Hashem's definition of himself. So you can't ask a question, can Hashem make a weight that's so heavy he can't lift? It's it's not a question. And the reason why is because the assumption in the question is flawed. The predicate is flawed. Because Hashem hasn't got a body for us to then understand, how does he not be able to pick up a weight that's too heavy for him? So of course he can't create such a thing. So therefore he's limited. No. You're asking a question based on physical dimensions, on physical diameters, on physical weights measures. Hashem is beyond that. He is not defined by the physical world. He created the physical world. He's not physical. So the question doesn't exist. But for someone who doesn't understand that the question doesn't exist, he doesn't realize the predicate is flawed, he's going to think that there's a problem here. So the very fact that a person has a kasha about the future is only because we live in time. So because we live in time, we think it's a kasha that Hashem, how can he know what I'm going to do? Because then I don't have free will. But no. Time exists for us. Hashem created time. He's not limited by time, he lives outside of time. And therefore the past, present, and future exist simultaneously for Kadosh Baruch Hu, and that's why it's not a problem for him to know the future, the future doesn't exist for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the same. The moment you mention the Akedah in davening at the beginning of Tefillah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu counts it as though it's happening right now. The Arizal points out something similar to this, that the way Teshuvah works is that, in English you have an expression, you can't cry over spilt milk. It happened. The person did the Aveira, it's done. So in the laws of Teshuvah had to be created before creation. It was created before creation because it goes completely against logic and against what you and I would call teva. Spilt milk is spilled. It's spilled. You can't unspill it. So comes along the Arizal and explains, time only exists in a human capacity. In our existence, there's past, present, and future. But in Hashem's world, it doesn't. He created time. It's outside of him, which means that when a person regrets doing an Aveira, his new mindset gets dubbed. It's now placed on top of the old Maisa, and now the consequences of that Maisa change. Because really he deserves the death penalty for killing someone. But now he regrets it, even though he planned and killed the guy, now he bitterly regrets it. What happens next is that now the new Kavanah, which is, I wish I never did that, becomes now placed on that Kavanah, that intent now is placed on the old previous act, and the act is now not b'mezid, it's b'shoigeg. And therefore the consequences of shoigeg are totally different than mezid. Mezid, he gets a death penalty. Shoigeg, he has to go to Arei Miklat.
Question is, if you're going back and you're seeing that the Kavanah or whatever, why do we say it never happened? Why do you say it's a shaykhah? If you're saying that the person, there's no time, right?
Right.
So it's as if you went back to before the act and
Right.
you didn't do it.
Right.
So why do you say it's a shaykhah? It didn't happen.
So even better. So there is such a level of
You
teshuvah.
get schar for doing it, for doing tshuva b'hava, and then you get schar for doing the aveira.
In Hashem's world, it's amazing. That's why Rav Nachman says, and there's a whole song based on this. Yesh inyan hithapech. There's a topic where you can actually change something that appears to be bad and turn it into good. It's not just talking about silver lining, it's talking about reality. In God's world, everything is perfect. Mipi elyon lo teitzer ra'os. From the mouth, so to speak, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nothing bad comes out. And Hashem's Baruch Shama v'ha'olam and Baruch Oimeh v'oiseh. He's constantly, so whatever we hear from other people is really Hashem speaking to us through that person. And everything we're listening to is tailored. So that means to say that when we plug into God's definition of reality, we can access a much broader, bigger context where I realize even a mistake I made is an illusion, because it's only a mistake if I want it to be a mistake in my mindset now. But if I realize, look, everything happened is really min hashamayim, but what I did wrong is for me to realize, okay, I have to do tshuva. And how do I do tshuva? Say sorry, move on. And if I'm really smart, I can do tshuva me'ava. Then, as you're pointing out, I can actually not only
undo it
to a zero, I can actually reverse it so that if it's a minus 10 on the Aveira scale, it becomes a plus 10 on the Zchuyah scale. If it's a minus 1,000 on the Aveira scale, now tshuva me'ava becomes a plus 1,000. So in God's dictionary, so to speak, there's no such thing as Yush, which is Torah 78. It's a pure human illusion. We made it up. We create in our own minds despair. There is no such thing as despair.
But the whole tshuva thing can only happen in this world. I'm saying it.
So
Why can't I go up to the next world and do tshuva there?
So that's a very fair question. We've touched on it a little bit before. No, it's okay. But there is a concept which we've looked at, that one hearer of teshuvah in this world can affect a schus that will enable a certain type of towering tzaddik to be able to actually redeem that person from wherever they are. So there is such a concept that what we did down here, we can actually, even just one here already is worth it. It can get us eternity. So there might be a cleansing process in between, whether it's Gehenna, whether it's Gilgal. Gilgal's much worse than Gehenna. We're not going to go there now. But Hashem created these not as Oynesh, but rather as a system for correction. It's a system for tikkun. We're all in the same hospital. Olam Hazeh is one huge hospital. Some are in the ICU, some are just in the emergency room, some are on the operating table, some are waiting. We're all in Olam HaTikkun. That's essentially what we all
don't realize that they need a hospital.
Sorry? And some don't even know that.
yet that they need a hospital.
But what's really amazing is that in the biggest picture, which is what the Arizal's got a whole sefer on, Sefer HaGilgulim, is that in the world of Gilgal, from the word Gal means reveal, but also means round or revolution, like a wheel. Like Galgalim are wheels, they're going around and round. Gal is also a wave. It's the waters are constantly. That's why the ocean is so friendly. It's always waving. So the waves are constantly Galgalim. The concept is that Gilgal is a system that Hashem created so that no matter how many times a person messes up, he'll get another chance and another chance and another chance until he actually will fix himself. It's a Sharit Zion in Hilchos Yom Kippur by Mincha time. I don't remember the simon now. It's around about Taf Reish Nun Vav, something like that. You look it up in Hilchos Yom Kippur. Look at the Sharit Zion. It's a nice fat Sharit Zion on Hilchos Mincha of Yom Kippur. So the Mechaber is talking about why we read Sefer Yonah on Yom Kippur. And so the Mishnah Berurah in Sharit Zion explains that in addition to it being a true story that happened, it's also a mashal. That when a person tries to run away from Hashem, which is what Yonah tried to do, which doesn't make any sense. He's a Navi. If anyone knows you can't run away from Hashem, it's a Navi. Well, he knew he couldn't run away from Hashem. He was going to a place where he could not be besimcha in order that Nevuah would not come, so Hashem couldn't communicate, so to speak, with him. So what did he do? He goes on a ship. Now in the old days they didn't have buoyancy like we've got today. So there's a psik ratio. You're going to be even without a storm. You're going to feel seasick. That's the actual expression. But there was a real storm. So he knew he was running away from Hashem, inverted commas, and says the Mishnah Berurah in Sharet Zion, the metaphor of the story, it's a real story, but the metaphor of it is that when a person runs away from Hashem, Hashem will bring him back. He was swallowed by a whale or a large fish and then spat out into another one which was much smaller, and eventually he spat out onto the ground, and he saw that no matter what he does to run away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem will figure out a way. He'll get swallowed by a whale. He was dropped into the ocean to get swallowed. That makes no sense. That's exact. Hashem can do anything. So Hashem gave him a tzivur, you got to go to Nineveh, no matter though his reasons for it were 100% lishma. He didn't want Nineveh to do teshuvah and put Bnei Yisrael, make them look bad because they've been receiving so many prophets and don't do any teshuvah. We needed Haman to correct that situation. So comes along the Sharet Zion and tells us that this is a metaphor that a person should know. He should never say, the grave is going to be a resting place. It's not a resting place. Chibut HaKeva. The worms, you can hear every single movement of the worms. Don't hear anything else. And every single bite, is another. It's exactly like a needle going into the skin. It's horrific. So says the Mishnah Berurah, what if I know I've got to come back down anyway, and in another Gilgal, and die again? I may as well try and get it right the first time, so I don't have to keep coming back. So in that bigger scheme of things, that's a whole new hekef, a whole new world. It's not the place now, but there are people who've had life after life experiences. If you want to read thousands of cases, Dr. Raymond Moody recorded them. fascinating cases of people who died medically but came back, and many of them had this panoramic view. I think I've shared it with you before, where they actually get to see, they go through a tunnel of light, and then they end up in an operating room where they see an Isha giving birth, and it's them that they're giving birth to. The mother's giving birth to themselves. And this person who just died relives every second of their entire lives, from infancy all the way till when they died. And it's in real time. And the amazing part of it is it all takes place in the split second. So there's no time in Olam Emes. Rav Nachman talks about having a dream that seems to be like a 70-year dream, and he wakes up and it's 15 minutes since he went to sleep. Because there's no time outside of that, in that dimension. So it's possible a person can actually experience that, and it's very interesting. A bit of extra information here. When people who died and came back, when they attempted to commit suicide and failed, every single one on record, not a single one of them attempted suicide again. People who failed in their suicidal attempt and did not have this afterlife experience often did attempt to commit suicide again. And when the question was asked to people who tried to commit suicide and survived and had this life after life experience, or life after death experience, they call it both, they would say that the inspiration and the realization that there's another dimension outside of this world gives them such a respect for the bigger picture that they realize they're here for a reason. And because of that respect for that reason, they lost Bechira to take their life again. And there's another area which they almost lost Bechira, and that's they don't fear death, because they know what's on the other side. It's so much better than this world. At least they didn't get to Gehenna, they didn't get to do a Din Cheshbon. Some of them actually did. It's a fascinating thing to look into. I have a few friends who actually, 3 people I know who went through that.
Dr. Raymond?
Dr. Raymond Moody, Moody. Not to be confused with emotions, but Dr. Raymond Moody. There's other books that scientifically proves Gilgal is real. One of them is called, I think I shared this with you, Ian Stevenson, Dr. Ian Stevenson. He wrote a 7-volume work. It's called Where Reincarnation and Biology Intersect. Where reincarnation and biology intersect. So about 100 years ago, if your kid told you, you're not my mom, you're not my dad, and he starts telling you who their real parents are, you just give him one good whack, and it will shut them up. Today, you'll end up in jail if you give him a whack, or you might end up in jail. So you take him to a therapist. Now, what ends up happening is that at conferences of psychologists who share with their colleagues, having clients who have similar cases. So this Ian Stevenson, Dr. Ian Stevenson, he started realizing there are so many cases where children are claiming their parents aren't their real parents. We ought to study this. So he put together slightly over 200 questions that are asked to these children, usually around about the age of 3 to 9. By 9, the memory completely goes. They have very few memories of their previous life, and they're claiming that their parents aren't their real parents, and they say who their real parents are. Amongst the questions are: where did you live? What was the address? What was the name of your parents, your siblings? What was the layout of your home? What was the name of your street? It sounds like trivia, but actually the reason why was because they wanted to then research all these answers to check if they are real. I actually know of a particular kid who's extremely bright. He speaks 4 languages, age of 3. He reads hieroglyphics. I'm totally serious. I'm not going to give you too much information, but it's an astonishing thing that he knows information about his grandfather, who died on the day he was brought into this world, and he knows about the family dynamics between the grandfather and other members of the family. And when he starts telling the parents this, they freak out, because how is it possible you know this? There's only one way, because the grandfather was actually a Holocaust survivor, and this kid has memories. He freaks out whenever there's boots on the floor, and when he hears the rails of a railway, freaks out. So there are many such cases. So this Ian Stevenson collated 2,400 case studies of children claiming that their parents aren't their real parents because they're here from before, and the children would answer all the questions correctly. It's a 7-volume work. He condensed it into 1 volume by the same title for us laymen to explain that in the world of science, this is a scientific study, that there's evidence that people are here from a previous lifestyle. And there's such a thing as another dimension outside of this world. So that's a fascinating study. I do believe, this is my personal opinion, that as we get closer and closer to Mashiach, Hashem is allowing both technology, science, and psychology to provide for us emunas chushes, where it's no longer a leap of faith. There's such a thing as Gilgul. No, we got scientific evidence of it. Not that we need that because we got emunah anyway, but we believe in our tzaddikim. The Arizal was huge on this. He took sometimes and gave a tour, so to speak, for his Talmidim of the cemetery, and he would show, this person buried here, he's been a Gilgul X number of times, and this was who he was, the previous time, etc. And some of them been there for hundreds of years. So we've known this all along, but I do believe the reason why sometimes science reveals such insights as to another dimension is in order to make it easier for us to be ma'aminim. And it's also a big tviyah, it's a big responsibility, because if I'm still not a ma'amin, has v'shalom, what does the person answer? I don't know what atheists are going to say on Yom Adin. It doesn't make any sense. So back to where we are. There's certain things not that you are forbidden to reveal. Now the question will come back stronger. That's what we got up to, sorry. Then he'll start getting into things which are beyond time, and then that becomes really complicated. It reaches a point where there's not even time in our world to answer these questions. In the notes from Rabbi Atiyah's Sefer Perush on the Likutim Ran, and I also saw it in Rabbi Kramer's, on this particular line, he quotes the famous story from a Rabbi Bruchim Halevi, who was a Talmud of the Arizal. And on a Shabbos afternoon, the Arizal had been resting for nearly half an hour, and the Talmud noticed that Arizal's mouth was moving. So he put his ear close to try and hear what he was saying, and this was during sleep. The Arizal woke up, and the Talmud was horrified that he had caused his Rebbe to wake up, and he apologized profusely. But he asked him, I'm so curious, your lips were moving, and you were saying something. Could you share with me what you were saying? So the Arizal said, I was learning the sugya in Shemaim of Bilam and his wife, Eeyore, the mule, whatever, and Mrs. Bilam, but if I had to tell you what I learned in Shemaim, I would have to sit here for 80 years non-stop. Shmonim shana vitzufim, no eating, no drinking, no sleeping, and I still wouldn't finish what I learned in Shemaim. Meaning to say, there are sagas that are beyond time, and they're not reachable for most of us. But for Tzadikei Emes of the caliber of the Arizal, the Baal Shem Tov, Rav Nachman, etc., these are makifim that they are able to actually access, and to what extent they are allowed or it's mutter to reveal, that depends on both the person revealing and the person who's receiving. It's told of the Reb Chaim Vital Zal that when he asked for something from his Rebbe, the Arizal was compelled to tell him, because the Arizal revealed to him that he only actually came into this world because of the Reb Chaim Vital. So if Reb Chaim Vital had a kasha, even though the Arizal knew that would cost a huge price, sometimes it would be the passing of his own children. it was a very serious matter. It's brought by Rabbi Abijah that Rav Nachman knew that it would cost the lives of several of his children to be Megala, the Tikkun Klali. I saw that inside from there, Rabbi Abijah. I asked Rabbi Kramer, my Rebbe. He said he has not seen that before, but that's what Rabbi Abijah, I don't know where he got that from. But there's certain things that if a person realizes is going to cost. So there's an analysis cost. What do you call it? Cost
profit analysis.
Cross profit analysis to figure out. Okay, does the gain supersede the price that I'm going to have to pay for this? And Rav Nachman did say, I made tremendous sacrifices to be Megala what I've been Megala to you. So, Kihem Lamala Ma'azman, there are certain hasagas which are beyond time. Kichol Mashu Megala is a seichel. The moment you reveal a certain level of seichel of the mind, kusha oy teretz, a question or an answer, nichnas boy seichel chadashu bekinas makif. A new question or answer will enter, a new level of your mind enters your mind. So if a person's not careful with his words, to be meticulous, from the word dikduk, pay attention to the smallest detail. Dak is narrow. To be careful with the smallest detail that he's revealing. What should he reveal? And what he shouldn't reveal. If he's not careful, his mind will enter a whole world of new questions and answers, which even time in this world, there's not enough to explain it all. Therefore, a wise person, this wise person that we're referring to, has to draw lines to what he's going to share. So the person who is speaking to and himself, the Hacham himself, will only be Megala, the Makifim that he's ready for. That he needs to be Masik, he needs to know. And not come to enter worlds which he's not ready for. There's a few examples I want to share with you. Rav Atiyah brings this from his Perush, where Rav Nachman himself talks about there's certain Makifim, don't go there. And he's going to talk about, hopefully we'll get a few minutes into the story with Moshe Rabbeinu, when he sees HaKadosh Baruch Hu putting Tagim on top of a certain Osius that were meant for Rabbi Akiva in the future, even though Moshe Rabbeinu, seemingly from the Gemara there, didn't understand what the significance of those Tagim were. So we'll look at that Be'ez Hashem in a few minutes. But in the meantime, I want to share with you examples where Rav Nachman himself talks about don't go there. So, for example, if you have a Sichas Run in front of you, the first one I'm going to share with you is Likutim Run in Chelik base, Torah Nun Pei base, 82. You've got Likutim Run in front of you, so go to 82. I'm going to ask you. If you got the same edition as me, I think you do. Is that right?
Yeah.
So turn over the page 76. It's just after the second half. It's into the second half of the second paragraph, starting with the words Ki k'shachelech la'adam shelo yiseda. Have you got the place?
Yes.
When things don't go according to the way you want it to go, zeh lo machal haslev. This is actually an illness of the mind, of the heart. When a person sees of himself, I think I'm looking at the wrong place. It's the third paragraph. I'm sorry, third paragraph, where it says Ikar Teshuvah.
Yeah.
You got it?
Okay. Yeah.
Ikar Teshuvah hu b'chodesh Elul. The main Teshuvah takes place in the month of Elul. Sorry, not Sichasoran, in Likutim. Torah, Pay base. Pay base, yeah, a few pages ahead. It's in paragraph 3. I don't know if it's numbered in your thing. Ikar Tshuva, hu b'chodesh Elul. The best time for Tshuva is Chodesh Elul. Gihem Yemei Ratzon. Why is Chodesh Elul the best month for Teshuvah? Because they are days of favor. Why are they days of favor? Because because Moshe Rabbeinu went to get the second Luchos in Elul, upasach derech kavusha leilech ba, and he trampled from the word kovesh. When he created a path going back and forth. It creates a path to go on it. This is the derech that is being referred to. Shemoshe kasha et atzmai afilu lepachos sheb'Yisrael. What is the path of teshuvah? It's a path where Moshe Rabbeinu is able to reach the lowest of the Jews, umasa nafsho elehem, to the extent he'll do anything, even if it means giving his life up for that Jew. Because the Pasuk says in Shemais Lamed Beis, Im ayin machini na misifrecha, where Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, if you don't listen to me and leave the Jewish people alone and forgive them, then take me out of your sefer. V'zeh Perush, this is, and now he adds on, this is actually from just a couple of weeks ago, V'yakel Moshe, when Moshe Rabbeinu brought everyone together by the building of the Mishkan, Shemoshe haya me'asef u'miyachet u'mikashe et atzmai im kol Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu, to use the language here, me'asef, collected everyone together, u'miyachet, brought unity, u'mikashe, and we became tied to each other. Moshe Rabbeinu himself is tying himself to all Yisrael, afilu im apachos shebechutim, even the lowest of the low. If you go down a few more lines, it says, it's about 10 lines later. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Nimsa, it comes out. The lowest of the Jews, it's impossible that that Jew doesn't have Elikus. He's for sure got Elikus. He's got God in him. So says Moshe Rabbeinu, I can be with him. Because Hashem's in him, so why wouldn't I be mitzaref with him? There's a different in Sikha Saran, if you got it in front of you, in the paragraph 224. You got it? Yes. בעניין מה שאמרו רבותינו ז"ל, שאסור להסתכל מעלה מעלה, מעלה מטה. Don't go beyond where your mind is able to go. Don't go beyond up or below. מה לפנים מה לאחור. It's a Mishnah in Chagiga, Perek Beis Mishnah Aleph. We're going to look at it in a few moments. Reish Chaf Dalet 224 in Sichas Haran. שאסור להסתכל. Sorry, I'll wait a few more moments. Lirois means to look. Lehistakel means to look very closely, to really, really try and understand what you're looking at. So asu listakel mala 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 mata. You're not allowed to look above and below. It means what's beyond the universe, what's before the universe. Malifnim malachor. What will happen in the future, and what happened before creation. That's some of the meanings. Because you and I live inside time, we can't understand what happened before and after time. Amar Rabbeinu Zal. Shekol Adam Adam, every single Jew, every single human being, yesh le bechina mala 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 mata. Everyone, based on their mind, has a limit what they can comprehend beyond them and below them. Every person's got a madrega where they should not look beyond. For some people, their limit is beyond the physical universe, beyond the Galgalim and Rukiim, all the galaxies, etc. You shouldn't go beyond that. All the philosophers and the researchers, who rak ad hagalgalim, only goes beyond the physical universe of the Galgalim, referring to the orbits of all the planets, the galaxies, etc. They don't know anything beyond that. We in the world of Ruchnius, we know that the lowest malach starts after the end of the universe, and that's just the heel, the foot of the malach. And then whatever distance, I'm not going into it now, but it's more in Chagiga Daf Yud Beis, I believe, which talks about, so to speak, distances in time. The distance from the whole universe to the lowest part of the lowest malach brings you to the foot, then the ankle, and then the knee, and then the thigh. And each one of these areas, so to speak, of each malach is the distance from the earth to the end of the universe for each of those distances. So it's a beyond human comprehension. And that's just the lowest malach before you get to the horns of that malach, and then the malach above him, all the way till the kisei HaKavod. So the kisei HaKavod is where Hashem, so to speak, sits in judgment. Hashem hasn't got a body. There's no actual physical seat, so to speak. But these are already dimensions beyond the physical world, the physical universe. So we know that these exist because they're brought to us in our svarim. Many people make mistakes about what's before all the galgalim, all the orbits of the galaxies, etc. Until the people are speculating, they have tremendous arguments about what the reality is. We used to think the atom was the lowest particle in the physical matter. Now we know, thanks to the increase of the magnitude of microscopes, we now know that they're giving names because we don't know what we're looking at. So they're giving names to quarks and leptons that are even smaller than the particles inside the atom, inside the nucleus. So, and there's a machlokes. Are the electrons actually orbiting the nucleus, or are they just vibrating? So it's like no end to the machlokes that's between them. And even today in the world of medicine, there's no end of what's the right surgery, what's not right surgery. And then you go into alternative medicine, which is a joke. It's a joke because alternative medicine is the medicine we're doing today. That's the alternative. The original medicine was actually accessing what's natural in the physical environment. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu put everything that we need, Shasali Kol Sarki, in the physical environment. What we've created as a man-made remedies, that's alternative medicine. But I'm going to use the expression alternative medicine as it's colloquially used. In the world of alternative medicine, there's lots of different ways to deal with every single illness. Eventually, the Mashiach will be the one who actually reveals all those remedies, and will similar to what the Baal Shem Tov did. He was a physical healer, and he was accused of using Shemus, and he said, I never used Hashem's names when it came to healing, only used actual herbs. But you have to be a really smart mind to know which herb, in which season, and which part of the month, and at what point of growth and ripeness or pre-ripeness. There's a whole science to it. So it does take a chacham of extraordinary genius to understand that well. But it is a chachma. It's a wisdom, and it's attainable for those who would throw themselves into it. The haklal. Here's the general rule. Shekol adam b'makom shemistayim siklei, where your mind has reached a gavul, a limit. Aso lo halak yosa. Don't go further. Kizeu etzlei b'chinas mala mata rak lismerch al emunah levad. This doesn't mean that you're capped forever, because there's tefillah. Rav Nachman talks about how, I think Kuf Yud Aleph, someone came to him. He said, "I want to be a good Jew." So Rav Nachman told him, "Learn Torah, because if you want to be a good Jew to Hashem, you can't do that without knowing what Hashem told you. So learn his Torah." He said, "I can't learn." So okay, so daven that you should be able to learn, because there's nothing you can't get from davening. And that's how Rav Nachman became who he became. It's all, the effort was all from tefillah. So a person's never really capped, because they've got tefillah to turn to. Please, Shalom, help me understand Chumash, help me to understand Nach, help me to understand Mishnayos, help me understand this difficult mistake, help me understand this sugya, help me to understand Sitrei Torah, etc. There's no end how much a person can ask for.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So if it's relevant to every person, mala, right?
Yes.
So there's no one way of doing it.
Right.
When does a person know when to stop? Because really,
excellent.
We're used to do more and more research.
Yes.
We always want to go higher, right?
Yes. So I would say the only real answer to that is two. Number one, having someone who actually can know me well enough to tell me you're going too far, hold off. Or daven, please mention him. I don't know. Am I going too deep or not? Help me. Help me understand, because I don't want to go beyond my limits. But this I want to share with you in Sichas Haran 290. That's Reish Tzadi. It says that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to all Klal Yisrael, And the words there in Dvarim, Perek Aleph, Pasuk Aleph, Eil ha-Dvarim asher diber Moshe el kol Yisrael. The way we usually translate this is, these are the words that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to all the Jewish people. Comes along Rav Nachman and says the word kol also means every. So that means every single Jew heard what he needed to hear from Moshe Rabbeinu. Because he was this Tzaddik Emes, Hacham Adar, that was able to bring down the Makifim, that every Jew heard what they were ready to hear and not more. So that's an example of what we're discussing. In Sichas Haran Tzadik Gimel 93, he talks about that there's a light that is so powerful that it lights up thousands of olamos. This light is so strong that an ordinary person can't receive it. So you need a Hacham Gadol, that's the language he used in Sichas Haran, who's able to split the light into fractions of thousands, and then those fractions have to be broken down, the thousands have to be broken down into hundreds, and then make it small enough that even a simple Jew can receive that light. Otherwise it will be what's called Shviras HaKelim, he'll blow a fuse. So he gives an example. If a person's teaching a pshat in a Gemara, for example, and it's beyond the comprehension of the listener, so a good Rebbe will identify where's the starting point of the student and now build small pieces that once the kid understands, to understand this sugya, I need to understand the tumah that the Kayan became tameh, that required him to go to the mikveh before sundown, and when he comes out now he can go home to eat truma, and the kid doesn't know what truma is. So I've got to explain some of the agricultural taxes. There's truma maisa, truma gedola, maisa rishon, maisa sheni, just to give the full I've got to break it down so the child or the student can understand what are the components here, that when you put them all together, now I get the picture. So it requires a Talmud Chacham who's able to do that. And then he ends off there in Tzadik Gimel, he says that someone who's able to do that can actually cause the revival of a dead person. Can be Mechaya Mason. And Rav Nachman concludes over there, the Mashiach knows this in full. So that means when Mashiach comes, Be'ezvat Hashem will have the Hacham Adar that we can be yonik from. He'll be able to bring it down to the level of every single Jew, to understand the Torah at the level that he's able to. I'm going to quote to you what Rambam says on the Mishnah we've been quoting. The Mishnah we're quoting is Mala 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 Lamata. There's a Mishnah in Chagiga. It's a very famous Mishnah, Perek Beis, Mishnah Aleph. It says, Kala mistakel ba'arba dvarim. Mistakel is stronger than looking. Looking is just you're looking. But when you're mistakel, you're looking to understand. So you're gonna keep your eyes focused till you get it. So it's not stum looking, it's really, really trying to understand something. Kala mistakel ba'arba dvarim. Someone who really looks into the following four things. The Mishnah says something which you won't find anywhere else. It's a very strong language. Roy like ilu loy ba'le'olam. It would have been better for him not to have been born. It was not worthy of coming into this world. Whoa. So I don't want to go to these four things. What are they? I need to know what they are so I don't go there. Mala mala, don't speculate what's above. Mala mata, what's below, what's beyond time and space. Ma lifnim, what came before time. Mala acha, what will be after 6,000 years. Don't go there. V'chol sheloichas al kavoid koinoi. It seems like the next line has nothing to do with the previous, but actually has everything. I'll quote to you Rambam in a few moments. Anyone who hasn't got pity, chas, al kavoid kaineh, on the kavod of his creator, his maker, Hashem himself, he would be better had he not come into this world. He does not deserve to be alive. Now it says the lashon of the Rambam. You look up Rambam on Perush Mishnayos. Kol sheloichas al kavoid kaineh. What's it mean, Hashem's kavod? Hakavana b'zeh mi shloichas al sichloi. If someone doesn't have compassion, pity for his own mind, seichel refers to the ability to evaluate. From the word scale comes from seichel. We talked about that. Ki ha-seichel hu kavod Hashem. The seichel you have, it's actually kavod Hashem. That's a Sefano, Perek Aleph Pasuk Havav in Bereshis, where it talks about B'Tselem Elokim. The Hashem created Adam, B'Tselem Elokim. So the Sefano also uses a very similar language there. V'kivan she'eno yodeh erech hadavar hazeh. If a person doesn't understand the value that God made him a brain that has the ability to think and ask and penetrate and compare and contrast. If he doesn't understand the value, what Hashem has gifted him, has given to him, hare mufka bidei taivoisav. So his mind is going to be completely licensed, mufka, all over the place, on all his taivas. There's no limit how much to eat, what to eat, no limit to what to look at, no limit on what to say, no limits on lashon, on the lashon. A person will be literally v'nasa kebehema. He'll become like an animal that has no limitations. The Amru Chazal, he quotes here from Medrash Tanchuma, Pashas Nasai Perek Hey, Ein menafim menoyafim. Adulterers only commit adultery ad shetikanas behem ruach shtus, only because a mad thought goes into their mind and they follow that thought. V'zeh emes. This is reality. L'fi sheba'et hataiva. At the moment the person's got a taiva, doesn't make a difference which taiva is. Ein haseichel shalem. The mind is not complete. This fits in exactly what Rav Nachman was been telling us about the purpose of the tzaddik in the first place, is to inject, imbue in us a das, so that I can fight the ruach shtus. The only reason to do an aveira is because I didn't have das in that moment. So this fits in very clearly. If I have no limits, there's no limit to how many mistakes I can make. So I want to share with you the very famous story of Rabbi Akiva. So Gemara also in Chagiga, Daf Yud Dalad. And we're based going on to Tesvav, the famous story of Arba Nichnasim LePardes. There were 4 people who entered paradise. Paradise is from the word Pardes. Pardes is the 4 levels of learning. Pshat, Pei, Reish stands for Remez, a hint. Dalad stands for drush, which correctly translates as extrapolate. It's actually there, but you can't see it. But once you extrapolate it, you see, oh, it was there all along. And then side is you can't see it unless it's told to you. It's a secret. But once it's told to you, now you've got a completely different view of everything. So those are the 4 levels. And in the world of Pardes, there were 4 great tzaddikim who entered Pardes. The Arizal, I don't have the Makar here, but the Arizal in his writings, he explains that those 4 were actually going to try and enter Gan Eden at a place of Atzilus, at the highest place, in order to be metaken the chet of Adam Rishon, which would have brought the whole Tikkun HaOlam. So, but what happened? 3 of them were not successful at all. Ben Azai died. He actually died from what he saw. He was not ready for it. Ben Zaima went out of his mind. He went insane for the rest of his life. And Elisha ben Avuya, who later on became known as Acher, he became an apikares from what he saw. Only 1 person entered B'Shalom and came out B'Shalom, and that was Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was a Baal Tshuva at 40. How did he reach a stage where of all those 4, it was him? How did he do that? So the Marashah on that Gemara tells us Rabbi Akiva knew when to stop looking. Acher, Elisha ben Avuya, did not know when to stop. He kept looking because it was just so. You get inside Gan Eden. It's just you've never seen that dimension before. It's so enticing. It's so enticing that, and he misunderstood what he saw. Ben Azai, who died, he didn't even want to come back. He literally, his neshama refused to come back into this world. That's how he physically died. But Ben Zaima, he went out of his mind. He didn't have the capacity to contain what he saw, and he went beyond what he was supposed to do, and therefore he literally blew a fuse in his mind, went out of his mind, literally. Only Rabbi Akiva knew when to say no. I'm not looking further, and so he was able to come back b'shalom. So even though collectively they weren't able to do the tikkun that they had planned to, but it's an interesting sugya to look into. Check out the Ben Yehoyada. It's a very fascinating thing to look into. But I want to share that Rabbi Akiva, interestingly, is the author of the words Siag LaHochma Shtika. What is the fence that will enable that your wisdom will be contained and not get lost? It's shtika, silence. Silence means you set a gvul of what you will or won't say. So it's the ability to not go further. So that's going to be the sugya which we'll look at Be'ezrat Hashem next week, when Moshe Rabbeinu, he asked Hashem, I don't understand, what are these tagim for? Isn't there enough of the Torah that you need to put tagim? You didn't put in the Nekutas, that was deliberate, so that the Torah has so many different ways of interpreting it. He told, Hashem answered, there's going to be a huge Talmud Chacham in the future. Akiva ben Yosef is his name, and he's going to extrapolate thousands upon thousands, piles and piles of lessons from every single one of the Tagim. On the letters Shatnes Gats, there's all those letters have 3 Tagim, and on the letters Badak, was it Badak Hey, I think it is, there's 1 tag on each one. He'll be able to extrapolate thousands and thousands of lessons from each one of those. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, why are you giving the Torah through me? Give it through him. And Hashem's answer is very strange. He says, shtoik, silence. Kach ala b'machshava lefanai. That was my intent. That's what came up. And Rav Nachman asks, why are you saying quiet? He already said the question. Doesn't make sense. You know, a kid puts his hand up, but he shouts out the answer. So it's too late for the Rebbe to say quiet, because he already gave the answer. So Rav Nachman points out that Hashem was not telling him shtika on what he said. He'd already said it. He's telling him shtika because the moment Moshe Rabbeinu asked the question, he made room for a new hekef, a makif, to enter his mind, and he knew the answer. So Hashem said, shtoik, don't tell the answer. Because if you do, then another makif is going to enter your mind, and it's going to be no, and this is not ready for it. So I'm not going into detail. We'll touch on it a bit next week. But the concept of shtika is actually setting a limit, and it's actually harder to be quiet than to talk, and it's a much bigger effort and a greater restraint of gevura is erech hapayim. Ezu gibur hakover shet Yisrei. And the pasuk that's brought for that is Toiv Erech Hapayim Megibor. Erech Hapayim means you're keeping quiet, but you can see the person's actually, he wants to burst out, but he's controlling himself. That's called restraint. That's what Gevurah really means. Unfortunately, we translate it, thanks to the Christians, as power. It doesn't mean that. The power that it's referring to is restraint. That's what the Gevurah is in all the spheres as well. It refers to restraint. That's very powerful, to hold back. And that's what shtika is. So Rabbi Akiva was that. And I'll end off on this. Rabbi Akiva is also the author, thanks to his Rebbe, Nachum Ish Gamzu. He was the one that when his mind couldn't reach something that made no sense, he had a very simple answer. Kol da'avid rachmana letav avid. Whatever he does is perfect. And there was one occasion, which is famously brought in the Gemara and Brachas stuff, I think it is, that where everyone knows the story, where he was refused hospitality in a certain town, went to almost every house. He ends up having to sleep in the forest with his donkey and his rooster and his light, which he lit in order to learn. And then a wind blew out the light. Kol David Rahman el Tavavid. His answer was, whatever you do, Hashem, is for the best. It's for good. It's only for the good. And then a wild cat attacks and kills his rooster. A lion kills his donkey, and his response every time is, I don't understand, makes no sense. I'm just trying to, but I'm not questioning your ways. Called David Rahman al Tavavid. So it's interesting that night terrorists came and ransacked and did other terrible things to the population of that town, and had the light been lit, he would have been, or if the donkey had brayed, or his rooster had cock-a-doodle-dood, he would have been the target. So he went back and told his Talmidim, you see how everything Hashem does is l'tayv. So sometimes a person has that insight. He didn't know it at the time, but he knew that my mind can't fathom, so I'm not even going to second guess God's ways. So this is a very important point, which Be'ezrat Hashem will touch on a little bit more next week, that there are hekefim, which Rav Nachman talks about, and I'm going to mention next week, is that there's machlokes between tzaddikim, even tzaddiki emes. And Rav Nachman's advice is, don't put your head in between. Keep out. Keep quiet. There are lots of reasons. I'm going to go through about 5 different reasons why there are machlokes between tzaddikim, and therefore we should never get involved and have an opinion or take sides. It's none of my business. And to even try and go there, I'm denying the fact that there's a much bigger picture, that those tzaddikim often have access to the real world, and they know that by starting up against Tzaddik Mr. B, they are removing Kitrugim against him to enable Tzaddik B to be able to have the influence that he's capable of having. So it's there. I'm going to go through a lot of different reasons that Rav Nachman actually himself brings. So there's a lot of hekefim that we have to know to set a gvul. Don't go there. Don't go into machlekes. Lashon hara kills. So there's machlekes. It destroys. There's gvulim I've got to set for myself. So Be'ez Hashem, we'll talk about that next week. Any questions, comments?
So first of all, just observation. Torah Samach Daled also, the Rebbe talks about shilas that don't have answers. The paradox of Kol Alponi and Sovev Kol Alma and Malek Kol Alma. Like, how could it be both? And also, I don't know if this is off topic, but on Shabbos, the question arose about this Inyan where it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to create the world with Rachmim, and then Kaviyachal he regretted. With Din. Then Kaviyachal he regretted, and he was Meshatif Midas Rachmim.
Right.
So is that the same answer that you explained? That's just because we're looking at through the dimension of time, so we think it was before, after,
right?
Or what does it mean that Hashem changed his mind? It's also Shailish Ein Tshuva, right?
Yeah. Hashem has to speak in our language. So the concept of changing mind is something that enables us to have some sort of grasp on the concept. But you're 100% correct. It can't possibly be that Hashem changed his mind. What really happened is that he wanted both Rachamim and Din to appear as separate entities, but really it's pure Rachamim. That's already when we get into the spheres, let's say Keter, which is pure Rachamim. There's only Ava, there's only Chesed. There's no Din whatsoever. Even the one beneath it, which is Chochmah, it's pure Chesed, it's pure Ava. It's less than Keter, but it's still 100% Ava and Chesed. It's only in the next one down, which is called Bina, that the Din actually starts to be manifest. So from a human perspective, we experience good and bad, and there's even a bracha to say on the bad, Baruch Dayana Emes. But on the good, we say Baruch HaTov HaMeitiv. But Chazal revealed to us there will come a time that it's a famous Gemara in Pesachim Daf Nun that V'haya Hashem L'melech HaKol Haaretz B'yom Hahu Yeh Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. Pasuk in Zechariah Perek Yud Dalet, that eventually we'll all see that Hashem was only one all along. It was the same Chesed, the same Ava. Comes along the Maharsha and tells us that we will say the bracha HaTov HaMeitiv on all the Ra, because now we realize it was actually for the good. So that's when the whole world will only have HaTov HaMeitiv. There will be no Ra that will be recognizable as Ra, because Hashem can't do any Ra. So Midas Hadin appears that way from the Tzad, the Klapi, the receiver, but really it's all Rachamim. But we can't see that in this world. Some real big towering tzaddikim are 100% davak to that.
See, to believe it.
Yeah.
He said, he saw it after, but not necessarily that you will see it after.
Right, 100%.
Fascinating. Thank you.
It's amazing. Baruch Shkoyach, thank you.
He just mentioned that it should not be the word with din, and then he
Right.
had Rachamim, and he said Shuvah comes before all that.
Right. It had to be created before. So tshuva is Rachamim. You're 100%.
It's amazing what you said about that tshuva, that it undoes the whole dimension of time, right?
Yeah.
There's no time in Shuvah.
No
It
time.
has to be that way, otherwise.
Yes. Otherwise,
it
it cannot fit in Teva, so it couldn't be created in the 6 days.
It's created before
Yeah, because it's beyond Teva.
time or before the world?
Both. Both. Yeah. So the interesting thing is that Rachamim really is din, meaning to say that it's a mishpat that it's all Rachamim. That is the din. So even when it looks like din klapi us, it's actually from Hashem's perspective, the mishpat it has to be Rachamim, and it's not 95% Rachamim; it's 100% Rachamim. That's why I mentioned Gilgal, because Gilgal enables us to understand that actually it's Rachmei Hashem, that the mishpat is that this person has to either go through paying the price in Gehenna, which is Rachamim. or he has to go into Gilgal, which is also Rachamim. There's both options. A person, if he's given the choice, he should fight in Olam HaEmes for Gehenna and not Gilgal, because Gilgal has too many chances that I'm going to mess up again.
He's given the choice.
He's actually given, yeah.
He is given the choice.
Even if he's not given a choice, Rav Nachman told Rav Nassan that you do have a choice and you can insist on it.
Yes, we'll find out.
We'll find out. Well, if you're makusha to the tzaddik, you're going to be okay anyway. He's going to pull you out.
I think it's in Torah Bez, the Rebbe talks about it, that the mishpat, right, the din is really rachamim.
Right.
Hashem was going to do a world with mishpat and din,
Right.
and that was the rachamim.
Right. Right.
It
There
was
you
a
go.
just world.
So
Yeah,
we
it's
learned,
100% mishpat.
we learned
100%.
Shabbos, this first thing in Sifas Haran about Tshuva before the world, right?
Yes.
Somebody said there that it's possible, and I'm going to run it by you, that Hashem created this whole sin and whatever, everything, because he had a desire for this thing called Tshuva. Is it fair to say that? Is it okay to say that? Is it true? I mean, it rings true, but I don't know if it is actually. How do you see it, Rabbi?
I'm not sure. If you're saying that sin is lachatchila in order that the tshuva is which is the real goal.
Because we have Bechir and whatever.
Yeah.
But the guy was saying that maybe that's the reason Hashem created this whole
Yeah.
thing about sin and
Yeah.
created an idea of sin and then the channel of sin and everything in
Yeah.
order to achieve this thing called Tshuva.
Yeah.
It says
So-
David HaMelech.
Yeah.
Says
Does anybody
He
else
wasn't
besides the
capable
Rebbe
of-
say
of-
this,
of
that
that.
Tshuva was born before the world?
It's a Gemara in Pesachim. I don't remember where. I think Maran about Memtes. I don't remember for
That
sure.
was
That
born
there were a few
upon
things that were created before,
The world?
and one of them's tshuva. Yeah.
Huh?
Yes, I think that is accurate. That Shlomo Melech says, "Ki Adam ein tzadik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov v'lo yecheta." There's no such thing as a human being, even if it's a tzaddik that only does good and never makes a mistake. And even Adam Arishon, he made a whole cheshbon. I never saw this inside, but I do remember my first Gemara Rebbe, Rabbi Aryeh Carmel, who was a Talmud Mufhak from Rabbi Dessler. He quoted his Rebbe, Rav Dessler, quoting the Zohar. I never saw it inside. That Adam Arishon, because he had no parents to blame, so his mind was perfect in the sense he had a perfectly human mind, meaning to say that he had Das Elyon. Because he had Das Elyon, he knew that who's greater, a Tzaddik Gamor or a Baal Teshuvah? A Tzaddik Gamor is not as great as a Baal Teshuvah. The Makam Tzaddikim Gamurim Amdim, Makom Shebal Teshuvah Amdim, Ein Tzaddikim Gamurim Yechalim Lamoid. So he knew that even though he was a Tzaddik Gamor, he himself, Adam Rishon, it wasn't his fault because he was born that way. He actually wasn't born; he was created. He was created that way. So he helped. There's over 800,000 different fruit trees in Gan Eden, and Hashem told him, "Mikol eitz hagan achal toichel." Please enjoy every single one of them. By P.S. The one that's in the middle of the garden, lo toichel mimenu, because the day you do, you're going to die. So he helped. Then 1 second. Why are you telling me that there's one I shouldn't? It must be that I should eat from it, then do teshuvah, and I'll be a Baal Teshuvah, and I'll be higher than before. And that's why the first question Hashem asked Adam Rishon after the Chet was, Ayeka, where are you? Are you higher than before? Or not? So they say the reason why he couldn't do teshuvah as he thought he could is because it's a very big difference. If the king in the palace in front of you and in the throne room tells you don't do such and such, and then you do it right in his face, that is much worse than if you heard the ministers say the king has given out the following, don't do this. So but he heard it from Hashem himself. So don't make
that level was a mistake from him?
Yeah, don't make chashmas. According to this Zohar that was quoted from Rav Dessler. So why am I sharing that with you? So based on that, you could say that Hashem did want that the teshuvah is what is the purpose of creation. But once the chet was done, yeah, teshuvah is the purpose of creation. Whether he was really correct in that, it seems not. But Moshe Rabbeinu understood that when Hashem said "Hanichali," leave me alone, he understood. Excuse me, you're everywhere all the time. Where am I supposed to go to leave you alone? It must mean that you mean don't leave me alone. So and it was a correct diuk. It was a correct extrapolation, and he's rewarded for it. And so he stood up against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who wanted to destroy the whole Jewish people. So it's an interesting thing to look into. But I think that is correct, basically. You're welcome.
And with that, we conclude our Sunday shiur.
Special shkachtas people.
See you next week, everyone.
No, right?
No questions from the audience?
No
Okay,
questions. Boring audience today, no questions.
No, they get it.
That wasn't recorded.
Okay, we don't need it anymore.
Okay.
Square.
Yeah.
It's worked.
Fascinating.